Hi there folks, my name's Alistair Gray. I'm the Program Leader in the Department of Homeopathy at Endeavour College of Natural Health. And I'm going to discuss with you briefly an aspect of the development of health, healing and medicine in the 19th century in the Western world, which is crucial to understanding why things are the way they are now. And that's the development and the emergence of psychoanalysis and psychotherapy throughout the 1900s. This is really, really important because, I mean, we grow up and we're born and we start to look around at the world through the lens of the age in which we are. But really, looking back at the work of Jung and Freud in particular, those two are giants in the development of the mind and really understanding the mind as a piece of the puzzle in what goes into making a healthy world or a sick patient. So let's start with Freud. Broad brushstrokes and quite quickly. The thing to remember about Freud is that he was born in 1856, so that places him really in the Victorian era, but born in Austria. And he's, of course, well known for his theories on the unconscious mind and for suppression, for repression, and the development of psychoanalysis. Of course, he's well remembered and often erroneously for just focusing on one aspect of repression and suppression, and that's sexual drive. So he is really the first person to articulate, as I understand it, this idea of sexual desire as a primary motivational energy in life and health. Of course, he used other theories as well, free association, and he's the first person to develop this idea of transference in a therapeutic relationship. And Freud, I suppose, he's fallen out of favor a little bit over the years. There's no doubt about it. Some people look back at the primary focus of sexual desire in his theory and say, well, hang on, it's a little overdone, don't you think? Which is quite possibly correct. But that you can't throw the baby out with the bathwater. And really, in the history of medicine, in the history of healing and health, goodness, I mean, he's an absolute giant. I mean, what are some other important aspects? He was born in Austria, Jewish. In 1885, travelled to Paris and went to university, where he studied neurology and medicine, and began a medical practice actually, but left it because he focused on the aspect of health through talking, through discussion. And we're not talking about patients that were a little bit sad or patients that had a little bit of, what do we call it, middle class angst. No, we're talking about patients with severe pathology. That can't be underestimated actually, because it must be remembered that before the age of psychological medical drugs, we're talking about no understanding of the human mind, from a modern perspective on how to create health from severe pathology. And so this is really the focus of what we're speaking about with Freud. Talking cure, as it became to be known. And, this is the context of Freud's work. In his later years, he moved from Austria, ended up in Britain, because he had some problems as Germany annexed Austria in the 1930s. He had developed a lot of wealth actually as well. That's one other thing which is often forgotten about about Freud, is that he was quite a wealthy man. A heavy smoker, which could, who knows, be important. Got no idea. Smoked cigars. He's the famous the famous origin of the statement, sometimes a cigar is just a cigar. And his ideas. What about his ideas and their importance? Let's discuss those. Oh, one other important aspect of his life. He was a cocaine user. Let's not forget that. Cocaine is quite an important part of his work, his legacy, and perhaps some of his ideas. He wrote several articles on the use of antidepressant qualities of cocaine, and he was quite a proponent of it. Not in the way that we would understand it today in the glamorous world of the advertising industry, but as an injectable, and he used it significantly actually as well. Yeah, quite a lot of cocaine use, without a doubt. But to his celebrated success really is because of his work with the unconscious mind. Yeah? He's really the person to have articulated the importance of the dream and of understanding the unconscious mind in the health and the ill health of a patient. He wrote a book, The Interpretation of Dreams, in 1899, in which he proposed that the unconscious exists and described a method of gaining access to it. You see, it's almost second nature to us, but Freud believed that people repressed painful memories deep in their unconscious minds. I mean, it's almost like a no-brainer for us, isn't it? I mean, of course. Sorry, that's a picture of Jung, not Freud. But Freud was that person that said and articulated that if you bury something, it's going to come out in some unhealthy way at a later time. He posited that early childhood abuse and sexual abuse was an adequate explanation for the origin of neurosis, pathologies, while he articulated it perhaps in a way which was not necessarily up to what we would consider to be okay from a modern perspective. You see, he couched it in terms of Oedipal complexes or oral fixations, that kind of things. But he recognized that neurotics had often been abused in some way, often sexually, by people that were well known to them, their uncles, fathers, mothers, whoever it might have been. And he started to look at this and analyze this. He believed that the libido and the sexual drives were crucial in the health of patients. Other developments as well, the life and death drives, really are quite crucial to understanding the legacy that Freud left for us all in psychotherapy and in modern psychology. A lot of influences went on to his life, and lots of movies actually about Freud as well. His patients, very, very famous folks. Mahler, if you know your classical music, had an extended consultation with him, and all sorts of famous folks. Woodrow Wilson got psychoanalysis as well. So very, very, very important man in the development of medicine, obviously orientated towards the mind in the 20th century. The same with Jung. Carl Gustav Jung, Swiss psychiatrist and founder of analytical psychology. Now, while a pupil of Freud, he quite quickly had a split with Freud as well. Historically, that's quite important because he disagreed with Freud's emphasis on the sexual drive and libido as being the primary factor in mental ill health. He said that there were many, many other things that went into creating ill health and developed ways of accessing the unconscious mind through dreams as well, but not necessarily focusing just on sex and sexuality. Now, as I mentioned, he was Swiss, and developed in his university years a strong relationship with Freud. He studied with Freud in Vienna. Apparently the first conversation between them is said to have lasted 13 hours. They obviously had a bunch of stuff to talk about. But nevertheless, these days their theories have moved away from each other, have diverged. Jung became editor of many analytical journals, academic journals. He was a very influential man at the beginning of the psychoanalytical movement. Travelled widely and taught widely as well. He worked on all sorts of different texts, psychology and the unconscious, but those tensions and the disagreements between Freud and Jung grew and grew, and in the first decade of the 20th century, they met and disagreed in a very, very loud and public way, and met for the last time in 1913. And from thereafter wrote and carried on their, if you like, their own branches of psychological development and science. There's some amazing books that Jung wrote. I would really strongly encourage you to read in your in your many hours of leisure, Memories, Dreams and Reflections. It's just an astonishing autobiography written by Jung. Other really interesting books are the Red Book by Jung. The Undiscovered Self is an extraordinary book as well, quite easily available. And have a look at them, because it's now with Jung's work that he was encouraging people that worked, or healthcare providers, to start reflecting on themselves and who they were as much as what was wrong with their patient. His influence is just massive, actually. And he's also the person that started to look at aspects of ill health and the role of spirituality in conditions such as alcoholism. He started to work with art and doodles, and definitely look at dreams as well, when it came to accessing those pieces of the unconscious mind that were features of a patient's ill health. Now, why is this relevant? It's crucially important for some aspects of natural medicine, especially those aspects that deal with that also deal with the emotions and the mind. I suppose you could say that any holistic therapy deals with both, but in particular homeopathy has borrowed heavily from the work of Jung to understand the broad themes and threads that emerge from the unconscious mind. It's really Jung's work, I suppose you could say. Adler and another therapist, Rogers, in that humanist tradition later in the 20th century, that are also influential. But when you think about it, in the modern context, a patient often comes to us, a client often comes to us describing their health. In other words, they deliver to us on a plate their case. This is the problem with me, this is when it all started, this is what's wrong, my elbow hurts, and my goldfish died when I was 10 years old, and I'm still not over it. We hear these stories, but these come through the filter of the conscious mind. And what Freud and Jung in particular were able to do is give us a language and a way to understand that which comes from a much more original source, if you like, and that's the dream. Yeah, the Freudian slip, the dream, or the doodle tells us much more about a patient and what's going on in their very, very deep psychological world, well, actually in their conscious waking world, as much as what comes out of their mouth. It comes out of their unconscious. It's very, very, very important to realize that. So some skills in the use of and the understanding of dream is very important. That's why you've got in your courses some social science subjects that really do focus on this aspect. The value of it, again, is because the dream gives you an access to the source, often the source of the problem. Because many of those traumas and dramas, those crises that patients and we've all had in our own lives, get buried. I mean, who wants to walk around with trauma? Yeah? No one does. And of course, so what the healthy organism does is it buries it. What the unhealthy organism does is bury it forever. And it comes out in pathology. This is our theory, our philosophy in natural medicine. So what we realize is these two people are very important because they developed a language to articulate and find and get to those repressed memories and be able to gently work with them. Of course, natural medicine works in another gentle way to bring them out as well. And so the combination of these skills, borrowed from psychoanalysis and used wisely and well and competently in natural medicine, is a great, great way to work. So really that's it. Broad brushstrokes and very quickly, just a quick glimpse at the emergence of psychoanalysis in the context of working with the mind in the development of complementary and natural medicine that we understand it today. So many thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you again. Cheers. Bye.